This is the Thought Leaders Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another awesome episode of the Thought Leaders Podcast. Today, we are sitting down with the one and only ErikTheElectric, or Erik Lampkin, for those of you who know him personally, which I doubt. But anyway, Erik is just a phenomenal YouTuber. He is, in my opinion, one of the most positive food eating channels that promotes having a good time and being healthy and staying fit. His challenges are out of this world, off the charts. We've worked with him in the past doing some really amazing stuff. And Erik, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me and for the kind words. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. So as we were chatting before, I'm a huge fan of your channel. And right away, I just want to dive into the content of it. So for those of you guys who don't know, why don't you dive in and just talk a little bit about what you do on the channel?
Yeah, so I upload to the average person that isn't really into food stuff on YouTube. This is going to kind of sound a little different, but I upload videos once a week of me eating crazy amounts of food and like way more food than the average person is used to seeing other people eat. And so that's something I discovered years ago. And so I do it once a week, and I love being able to entertain people through that. It's crazy that YouTube has kind of been an avenue for me to be able to showcase, crazy amounts of food consumption, and also, my sarcastic, crazy, different personality at the same time. I've been able to grow a following of 1.3 million subscribers over the course of a few years, just by showing other people my odd talent of being able to eat a ton of food. So it's been pretty awesome.
Yeah, no. First of all, congratulations on the 1 million plus subs. That's
Thank
really
you.
That's incredible, and you're just getting a massive amount of views every video, which is awesome to see. So let's start right at the beginning. So how did you start getting into competitive eating and turning that into YouTube?
Yeah, so I actually started my channel as a fitness channel. I was it actually in 2013. I was kind of I've been a huge bike rider for the majority of my life, and I started off my channel like. One day I was like, you know what, I kind of want to start a YouTube channel just showing people around like San Diego while I ride my bike. And then I was in the gym weightlifting, and I was like, you know what, I want to intertwine both of those. And then I thought to myself, like, you know what, I can eat a ton of food. So I tried a local food challenge. And this is actually, if people are familiar with the show Man versus Food,
Adam Richman.
Yeah, Adam Richman, all that. And I had been a fan of that since I was a teenager.
Me too. I love that
yeah,
show.
it's an awesome show. It's pretty much what started everything. And so there's a local food challenge here in San Diego that's called the Broken Yoke. And I actually went with my two cousins at the time, who were probably, they're big guys. Back then I was probably about 140 pounds. I'm like 5'8", and they're like, 6'4", 6'5", mid, like 250. They're big dudes. And so this breakfast challenge is probably, it's served on a pizza platter, and it's a 12 egg omelet with 2 1-pound biscuits, like 3 pounds of potatoes. It's a mass. It's a big challenge. And so I saw Adam Richman do it on Man versus Food, and I did a bike race that year, and I was like, you know what, I want to see if I can tackle it and if they can tackle it too. Like that, I'd seen Man versus Food. I'd seen like channels like Matt Stoney. I knew who Furious Pete was, like all these different guys, and I was like, you know what, I want to see if I can actually do a food challenge, because I can eat a lot of food, but I want to see if I can do it. So we walk in there, and I not only did the food challenge, but I actually set the record for the food challenge.
Wow.
It was my first ever food challenge. And so I had like an hour time limit, and I did it in like, 20 something plus minutes or whatever it was. And my cousins that I went in there with, they probably ate like 10% of it, and they were stuffed.
Did you train for that, or you just went in and were like,
no training whatsoever? I just literally, I did that bike race earlier that morning, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to be super hungry afterwards. So let's just go see if we can do a food challenge. And so I did that, and the manager was so impressed by how fast I took this thing down. He actually offered me a job. He got my phone number and called me like a week after. He's like, dude, I literally am so impressed. Like, I want people to do this challenge. Like, I want you to work at the front and be a host so that I can tell people that this guy did this challenge, so you should do it too. You know, in a way to just kind of like make money off of people, you know. But yeah, it was crazy, you know. And so I did that, and I shot it on my iPhone. I had like one of the early iPhones, or whatever the one back was in 2013. And so it's on my other YouTube channel that like I had like a bunch of other videos on back at the time. But so I shot that on my old iPhone, and I was like, you know what, this is actually pretty, it's weird, but it's actually pretty cool to like take on these different like food challenges myself and kind of just put it on YouTube. And so I I did a second one, and then I did a third one, and then it kind of just like, you know, started up from there. And so the fitness stuff was, you know, something that I kind of did on the side. And then I realized that, you know, my real true passion was at least on YouTube was, you know, presenting that food challenge aspect. And so I really started taking it seriously in early 2015. And as soon as, you know, early 2015 started, I just went full blast with YouTube. I was doing videos every single week, sometimes multiple videos a week. And it's crazy that it's been it's actually going to be my 7-year anniversary with my channel. Actually, no, I just hit 7 years since the channel creation. So yeah, it's been a crazy 7 years for sure.
That's incredible. So were you at any point doing food challenges outside the channel, or it's all on the channel?
The only food challenges that are not on the channel are the like technically on the channel were the first one, and then my second challenge, which unfortunately I failed because it was it was horrible. So, but that's just because like back then I didn't really like. I just wanted to do as many as possible, and I was like, "Ooh, that one looks cool. That one looks cool. That one looks cool." And I wasn't really like thinking like, "Oh my gosh, I need to document all of this," you know.
Yeah.
So mainly just 2 challenges, and then there were some contests along the way that I didn't really get the opportunity to film, just because like eating challenges and eating contests are like 2 drastically different things. And so and it just, you know, for me, like I don't do contests anymore. I do all my like actual like quote unquote challenges, and then restaurant challenges and stuff like that. So
yeah. So that's a really good distinction, and I'm glad you brought it up, because I think when I was growing up, when I thought of food challenges or food competitions, obviously Nathan's is the hot dog eating challenge, and like the 3 names that I have or the 2 names is Joey Chestnut and Kobayashi. That for me, I think, and a lot of people growing up, when they think of this type of content, that's all they think of, or maybe an older generation. And you have been able to successfully, and I know it's not the same thing, but you know, a lot of the food eating content is now really big on YouTube. Do you, so, and I know there's a lot of creators like that. Is there kind of a community of you guys trying to motivate each other, help channels grow? Because there's so much great stuff going on.
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's actually what I thought of too when I started getting into food challenges and everything. Like Kobayashi, Chestnut, Stoney, Mickey Sudo, like all these big names in competitive eating. Like
I also remember ErikTheElectric. Sorry to interrupt you. With
Tim Janus. Yeah, like
with the face paint. That was awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. So my first actual like introduction into the world of competitive eating was that there was a show on MTV called True Life. And they did a huge episode on competitive eating. So like I remember ErikTheElectric, I remember like, you know, Joey Chestnut, Kobayashi, like all these different guys going on that show. And so I remember like walking into my first contest. It was a boysenberry pie eating contest put on by MLE, Major League Eating, and I walked in and I got literally demolished by these guys. Like it was a beatdown. There was like 13 competitors and I was like, sixth or seventh or whatever. But like, I mean, I was good enough for myself that day. But like,
Right.
I got a real glimpse into the world of competitive eating from like, from my perspective back at the time. And I was just like, wow, like it's a lot different than sitting at home recording yourself eating food. It's way, way different because you're not like, there's no time limit. There's no, you can interact with the camera. You can, say all the cheesy jokes and do whatever you want. But when it's like legit, like an actual competitive event. And so for me, I was able to kind of see what goes on in the world of competitive eating and all that. And they're definitely a different breed of people because like people don't really realize what you actually have to do to be at that type of level, with the training that you have to put yourself through, the mindset that you have to be in whenever you're eating 64 plus hot dogs in one sit. Like people don't really understand how like outrageous that actually is.
Right.
To be able to do something like that. And so, but yeah, I have seen that there's been a lot of the other people, are making their way into the world of YouTube from competitive eating, which is great. I really think it's awesome because, like my ability to eat a lot of food, I would say is like, it's up there with some of them, but like the big names in competitive eating are like, they're insane. Like they're literally just insane. Like I think Joey Chestnut did like 35 Big Macs or something like that, which
I saw
is
that
like,
recently on his channel. Yeah.
yeah, it's literally insane. And so like I think it's great that they're moving over to YouTube and starting to do a lot of that now. I would say that like when it comes down to me just being like, I don't really classify myself as a competitive eater anymore. And so just because like when it comes down to doing those contests and, versus like my food challenges, I just really didn't enjoy like it gets like when you're watching a food eating contest versus like somebody eating, like me eating my food challenges, like it can get pretty nasty sometimes.
Yeah.
I remember recording a few of my contests and people just going like, dude, this is really like, I don't really want to watch this. It's like
Yeah.
you're dunking food and other food, you're mixing, drinks, you're getting stuff all over your face. It's just like, it's a different type of thing to watch for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, regardless, like I still have done my fair share of contests and I definitely got to experience it, which is a plus, so.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So let's go down the route of what your bread and butter is and these food challenges. So I don't want to call anyone out. But there seems to be first of all, it's a very divisive topic on YouTube. And there are some people like yourself, and I really put you here at the pinnacle of this, of doing it in a healthy, positive, promoting health, all the good things. And there's some channels, people extremely out of shape, really dangerous messages putting out there. I want to know how you struck that balance, and you're in great shape. Kind of what goes into a challenge and how does it really affect your health and kind of everything that goes into one of these?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought this up too. So, I actually, I started off how I got my really big appetite. I grew up extremely overweight. And so as a kid, was used to being made fun of for my weight. I was used to being bullied, all of that different stuff. And so I actually went through, a complete shift. I went from being huge overweight kid to losing a bunch of weight super rapidly. And I developed an eating disorder from that. And so I was dangerously underweight. And so that was around the time that I was a teenager. And so I kind of had to have this, I developed this mentality through a few years of being in recovery from that, food was something that I can use to, fuel myself. And I can use it in a, use it to get stronger, to just be in a healthier body. And so once I was able to kind of get that, educate myself and just go through a lot of the necessary stages I needed to go through to kind of get to that healthier balance, I was able to kind of see food in a different way. And so I think that's really an important thing that I needed to realize for myself, just because like a lot of people will see like my food challenges or see just any video of a person eating a ton of food, and kind of like there's a lot of like dichotomous thinking that exists on social media and on YouTube in general, where people just like have this notion where they see something and they just have black and white thinking, like, okay, that person is eating a ton of sugar, they must only eat a ton of sugar. Right. They must only eat a ton of, hot dogs, or, like their diet must be horrible. And I try to like let people know that like what you see on social media isn't always what is, that's not going to always be the only thing that person eats or does in their day-to-day life, And so like when I went through my recovery and all of that, I really, I got a different and better understanding of like my own body and like my own limits. And so I was able to kind of get my mindset completely changed around. And so I started doing my food challenges, and started using, like I'd see a lot of people have commented, because I've gone through, different periods of time through my channel where, this is another thing with social media, especially when you do food challenges on YouTube. I'll go on my tours and I'll gain like 10 or 15 pounds sometimes on my tours, and people will comment on weight gain and weight loss and all that stuff. But I try to, like you mentioned earlier, like I try to make it a now more than ever, a thing with people that like, eating a ton of food isn't really the healthiest thing for anybody to do, Right. And I try to just make it a message with people that, you can eat a ton of food, just make sure that you're active every day of your life. That's extremely important. And people really don't understand that, because they're stuck in that, that period of, or that mindset that I was just talking about, where they're just like all or nothing, like, oh, that person is, he's eating a ton of food, but he must be like, he must be super unhealthy outside of all this stuff. And so, I realize that that's always just going to kind of be the way that people think, and there's nothing I can really do about that. But I try to do as much as I possibly can to make sure people know that, like, okay, I take my supplements, I get blood work done quarterly. I am an endurance athlete, so I'm doing large amounts of activity on a very frequent basis. I take extreme precautions to make sure that I'm healthy outside of all of this, or else I wouldn't be able to do this, So, and then, there's other things too, with other people that do food challenges that aren't in, they're not in really good shape, or, they're just, because like I said earlier, it's definitely not the healthiest thing to do, if you're not taking precautions for it. And so, unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about that, but the only thing I can really control is my own actions, or are my own actions, and, what I'm putting out into the world. And so I kind of just focus on myself for the most part.
Yeah, no, that's, I think, a lot to unpack what you said. So kind of just going piece by piece, but I think that was an awesome answer. But just to kind of debrief everything, because again, that was a lot. Funny, I think the first time I heard of you, I saw that Men's Health article. I believe it was in Men's Health, about how you're coming back from anorexia, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So that's really awesome that you're so open about talking about that, and especially with the kind of content that you're putting out. So how does, how do you feel, how did that come about, that you went kind of back to the extreme, but you went from one end to the other end, but it's such a positive part of you now?
Yeah. That's something that I get a lot of feedback on pretty much every day of my life, because people see that, that they see that article, and I'm very open about my past. A lot of people that are in, this whole eating challenge or competitive eating or just like, food in general, at least in my community, have dealt with previous eating issues. They're just not really that open about it, which is understandable. I just choose to be because I want to try to help as many people as possible. Because there are there are so many people that are struggling with eating issues or body image issues out there, and so I was able to, I guess, I used to really, I don't want to say I would get offended when people would say one extreme to the other, but I mean, because I basically have been,
Right.
um, I realized that what I went through was a huge, psychological shift where I was thinking in terms of like, what, because eating disorders, especially anorexia, thrive on irrational thoughts. Like, okay, if I don't, or if I, if I venture outside of like my zone for the day where I, don't eat practically nothing, I'm going to get fat, And so once I started really challenging a lot of those, like the average person doesn't think like that, but those types of thoughts are just basically thoughts that have just been reinforced over and over again, when you constantly think like that. And it's like, even me explaining it, like, it's crazy just how I used to think, in my day-to-day life. And so when I explain that to people, they're just like, how could you think like that? And there's really no answer. It's just because I was stuck in this mentality. Like I said earlier, I grew up super overweight, and so I was constantly just thinking that if I ventured outside of like my like, I used to live on like 800 calories a day, like as a 18, 19-year-old kid. And I was dangerous. I was pretty close to not, I hate to say it like this and be morbid, but I was close to, not being on this earth anymore, and I got to that point where I was like, okay, I really need to like get a grip and get a handle on my mentality, because if I don't, I'm not going to survive this. And so like, once you have that really big wake up call and you really realize that, like, whoa, like, you really need to start thinking differently, man, because like how you're thinking right now is just it's not real. It's not like it's causing you to like, just think so irrationally. And so, I was able to kind of restructure my thinking. And I said, I went through recovery, and I did a lot of things to just get a better handle on myself. And so what I do now, it's like, thinking about what I do now, like back then, it's crazy, because like I never would have imagined I'd be doing exactly what I do now. But I'm able to do what I do now because like I understand like what is going on. Like, sure, I'm eating thousands upon thousands of calories, but I know that it's not going to make me what I once was.
Right.
So hopefully I was able to answer that question a little bit.
Yeah, no, 100%. Again, and I think that you touched on something else that I really want to talk about, is how you incorporate, and I know the main focus of the channel is the eating, but there's always shots of you doing physical activity.
Mhm.
Or most of the time, like a lot of times you're doing a selfie on riding your bike.
Mhm.
And I think that is such an important aspect, because you can, and I'm not a dietitian, and I know you aren't yourself, or a nutritionist, but again, if you're going to eat something that's super unhealthy and then work out the next day, or you worked out that morning to kind of balance it out, that's fine. And a lot of people look at these food channels and don't understand that, there's a lot of physical fitness aspects that goes into it, and you're really promoting that, which is great.
Yeah, and so I just started doing it recently. The Unfortunately, like, I kind of fell into this kind of one-dimensional, and that's the only way I can say it, kind of view on my channel, was just food challenge, food challenge, food challenge, food challenge. Like, every week was, okay, Erik, I'm gonna do a 20,000 calorie Hostess challenge. The next week it's gonna be $100 at McDonald's. The next week it's gonna be a bunch of Sonic. And I did that for about a good year and a half. And then I got to 2020, and I remember just thinking, like, I really want to show people more about myself. And I really want to show more people more about, how I'm able to do what I do. And so there's a
Yeah,
there's a guy literally blowing up doing his doing his gardening outside.
Hey, it's good. It's not a problem.
Yeah. So I wanted to show more people more about myself, and I realized that I kind of called it Erik the Electric 2.0. And so once I started Erik the Electric 2.0, it became more about telling people, that there's more than just food challenges every single week. There's, I feel like a lot of people wanted to know, like, okay, like, how are you able to do what you do? And so I started intertwining more of the fitness elements too. And like recently I did a challenge where I tried to eat 10,000 calories in a day, and then I tried to burn 10,000 calories in a day. And so that's an example of, like, what the fitness, how you can intertwine the fitness element with the food element too. And I started thinking about, how my channel is the direction of my channel now. And I love where my channel is at right now, because like that is genuinely something that I wanted. Like, I love showing people, but also something that's way more sustainable in the long run, because like it's just doing these, like, all of 2018, I was just doing these absolutely crazy, insane food challenges. But when you intertwine the fitness element into those food challenges, it definitely adds that sustainable element that I really was looking for a long time.
And definitely, I think someone that I follow, I'm sure you saw, Greg Doucette had and he's very critical of pretty much everyone on YouTube. And justifiably, sometimes unjustifiably. And he had a response, and I mean, I would love your take on it, but I think he was kind of giving you, kind of touching on things that I touched on, that you do show that, you can eat a crazy amount of calories, make sure you work it off.
Yeah. So I was actually kind of waiting for Greg's video to happen. He did a few videos, like he's done videos on a few of my friends. And I I remember, like, I had a friend of mine actually send me, so I woke up that morning, and one of my friends was like, he had sent me a DM, and I saw like a thumbnail, and it was Greg's video, and it had my me and his thumbnail. I'm like, oh, great, here's the video. And then I got a text from my other friend that was like, dude, did you see it, Greg's video? And it's like, okay, great, what's gonna happen now? So I was very, very surprised when I saw that video. But I was really, I was taken back, because I was just like you said, he's very critical, but like understandably so, because like he's Greg, and so he took my video. So I tried to gain 30 pounds in one day, and that was the video that he had used for his critique. The title of the video, so like, I guess from my standpoint, when it comes like I think it's called like my critique of Erik the Electric's binge eating channel, or in whatever you want to call it. If you want to call it binge eating, so be it. My whole thing is like, when people try to tie, certain, there's a lot of internet therapists and a lot of internet psychologists and doctors that exist. I like to call them that, because they're just people that think that they like know mental illness, and so they just try to diagnose that with people. And so like, whenever I see binge eating, I'm used to see people just like, oh, this guy's got some sort of binge eating disorder now, and all that different type of stuff. And even though I try to like make it a very like I try to make it a belief, or just put it out there to people that like, no, like, I do this once a week and that's it. My life doesn't consist of this, or else I would be really unhealthy and a bunch of other stuff. And so I saw that title, and I was expecting Greg to kind of just like throw stuff out there like that. And so when he didn't, and then I watched more of his video, I was like, wow, I'm waiting for him to like actually just go, just kidding, this guy's terrible. Don't watch his channel, blah, 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 blah. And so I remember finishing the video, and I was like, I literally cannot believe I just watched that, and I did not see anything bad. Pretty much. He did say that there was like, he didn't fully believe that I gained 30 pounds in a day, and I'm used to dealing with a lot of doubt and a lot of stuff like that. And so that was totally fine. But yeah, I was I was really surprised. I was like, this is cool. I can go with that. But yeah, it's I every so often people will make a video or something like that. And it's been more positive lately, actually, because I'm starting to show more fitness elements on my channel. And I just really want people to know that, like what I talked about earlier, where like you can enjoy that slice of pizza, you can enjoy a slice of cake or whatever it is, and it doesn't make you unhealthy, because we live in a society that preaches that still to this day. And so I just want people to know that like you can live a balanced lifestyle and you don't have to think like that. And so I think Greg did a great job at, giving people or at least showing people what my main message is. So
yeah, I think that it's so refreshing that you're coming in with a bit of the fitness content, because a lot of times, I personally enjoy a lot of fitness YouTubes. So a lot of times you'll see people with what I'm going to call unattainable bodies, right? Because whether or not they're natural or not, doesn't matter. They're maybe might not be a professional athlete, but that's what they do for a living. They train all day, every day, like the normal person can't. They have incredible physiques, and then they do like a 10, 20, 30,000 calorie challenge. And that is not going to affect them that much because, again, that's what they do. They work out for a living. You, on the other hand, you are a regular person who does a lot of physical activity, but you're highlighting the eating part and then adding in, hey, by the way, I'm a normal guy, completely attainable, and I can do that, and I can eat. And I think that's the real power of your channel, because you're not a guy who's in the gym for, and I could be wrong, but I don't think you're in the gym for 12 hours, doing 3 days or 4 days, right?
Yeah. I'm a power lifter too, but I realized that at a very, like a few years ago, that I'm not going to be those guys. Like, cause I used to watch those channels too, where I'd be like, oh my goodness, like this guy is 8% body fat. He's got tons of lean mass on him, and he's, eating 10,000 calories, 15,000 calories a day. Like, whoa, and that's what a lot of, unfortunately, like our younger generation is like trying to look like. And that's kind of I feel like that's going to always be there. That's like the message that society pretty much preaches. And so, I mean, I realize that I don't have the body type. I don't really have the genetics to be that way. Like people always kind of make this, like, I see comments from people that are like, man, I wonder if you actually lifted weights, like what he would look like. And I'm like, I kind of already do. Actually already do a lot. And it's just, this is not the way the body works. But yeah, and I also realized too that, like, especially with what I do, like it's like I'm never going to be that 8% body fat guy. I mean, I love food too much, and it's also my job to eat a ton of food pretty much every week. So it's like I'm not going to go, get super chunky, and I'm not going to get super lean. And I like the way that I am now, because I feel like I am a normal guy, and I feel like a lot more people can relate to that aspect, because, the super shredded, super, all this muscle on you, that type of look is definitely something that is, I'm not going to say it's unattainable for the average person, but it just takes so much time. And the fact of the matter is like, with these, calorie challenges, and a lot of these guys that preach that, it's just not something, it's not realistic,
Exactly.
It's not realistic to do that, So I do have a lot more time to be able to dedicate to improving my fitness than the average person does. I work from home, I create content. And so that's where I feel incredibly blessed. I feel incredibly blessed in a lot of different aspects, but, for me, like I'm training for an Ironman right now. And so, that takes a lot of time to be able to, go out on runs, bike rides, and all this different stuff, and I can kind of create my own schedule. And I realize that the average person doesn't have, like I said earlier, that time. In that 10,000 calorie eat and burn challenge, I started talking about, how people, actually, I'm not sure if you've heard of him, but his name's David Goggins. He's a,
of course.
he was
book.
Oh, good.
Goggins fan.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. So like I'm a huge David Goggins fan. And so I found him last year when he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I started listening to a lot more of his content. And so I was like, you know what, I really want, and that changed my mentality, on exercise, on everything that I do in my life. And so I even started talking about the 40% rule in my 10K eat and burn challenge. And, just from talking about that, I got so many positive responses from people that were just like, wow, it's like, it's not just with food. Like, if I want to tackle like that presentation I have at work tomorrow, or if I want to, tackle that, that job opportunity that, I have next week or whatever, I really need to give everything I have towards accomplishing that goal. And so, just me finding out about, the fact that like I'm only really giving 40% of my overall capability to the things that I'm doing in my life was such an eye opener for me. And I was able to kind of, push that more and more and more and more. And so, but yeah, finding out about David Goggins and his overall message and everything has completely changed the game for me. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't know. I'm sure you've heard of him, but if you haven't heard of Jocko Willink, that's
no, I
another
haven't.
guy. Yeah, definitely look up Jocko Willink. He's very similar to that style of kind of motivation, and something that I definitely live by. One of Jocko's biggest things is just be better than yesterday. It's
Okay.
it's about self-improvement. I think that kind of aligns, and it's great to hear that you're putting out this message, because I feel like I'm repeating this, but it's true. There's so much negative content
Mm-hmm.
or negative feelings about eating challenges. You're just putting a whole spin on it. But now let's take kind of a shift and understand what actually goes in to
Mm-hmm.
one of these challenges, because I'm super curious of how it works. So like
Yeah.
walk me through how you like come on an idea, filming, eating, how you feel, what's going on.
um, yeah, a lot of people just kind of look at it and they just go, "Oh, like you just wake up and just feel like eating $100 at McDonald's every day," or and it's like, no, I really, I don't wake up and just think, man, today I feel great about just going out to McDonald's and eating $100 at McDonald's.
Yeah.
It was in 2018, in the early part of 2019, that was kind of the take on everything, is like, okay, if I think about doing a challenge. I'm thinking about doing a challenge on Tuesday. It's Sunday, so I'll kind of just prepare for it that way. But no, um, now it's, I pre-plan my challenges a week usually in advance, so I pretty much know exactly what I'm going to be doing. That's, for me, like I can kind of get a gauge on, what my audience wants to see based on, the comments that I see. And also too, I usually, when it's like a holiday or it's, a certain period of time, like during the summer, I just did an ice cream challenge. And I know that more people are going to want to watch an ice cream challenge. And honestly, like ice cream sounds good when it's super hot outside. So I'm like, cool, I'll do that, So or like a s'mores challenge or whatever it is. And then for holidays, I do like big, Thanksgiving, Christmas videos. My birthday's next week, so I did like a birthday theme video. And so um, those types of challenges are all kind of like set in stone. Like I'm gonna do a video for events like that.
Mhm.
But when it comes down to like day-to-day week-long videos, I pretty much just have my normal, flow already in place. So I usually shoot on like a Monday or Tuesday at the very beginning of the week. And so going into the week on the weekend, I already, I'm pretty much like in that mindset of kind of getting myself kind of shifted into, okay, you have a video you're shooting on Monday. I get everything pretty much lined up for it. Like Monday, whenever I do my challenges, I always do a bike ride or a run or something that's, a pretty long, duration activity for the day. And then and I mainly do that because when I do my challenges, I really can't, it really, it increases my appetite a lot. And, there's so many benefits to cardiovascular activity that I tell people, like, it's great, not just for like burning calories, but it has a lot of benefits overall. But that's one of the main benefits for me, is that it really increases my appetite a lot. And so I do one of those, and I don't eat that day. A lot of people are like, "Oh, what do you eat for lunch or like breakfast?" It's like, no, like when you're eating, 10 billion calories, you're not going to really want breakfast
That's
that
the
day.
meal for the day.
Yeah, yeah. And so, but if it's like if it's, it really just depends on the size of the challenge. If I'm doing something that's kind of like, a lower, volume challenge, I won't really have to take too many, measures beforehand to prepare for it. Like if I'm trying to eat, I'm trying to think about like if I did like generally challenges obviously with like lower amounts of calories. If it's like an 8,000 calorie challenge, like that's something that I can eat and still like afterwards be, slightly hungry, 8 to 10,000 calories. Just because of the size of my stomach, I have actually between 13 and 15 pound stomach capacity. So it kind of fluctuates.
Is that how high above the average is that?
I would say that that's like Joey Chestnut and Kobayashi, like all the big names. They probably have about 20 to 22 pound stomach capacity.
And
So that's yeah.
what's a
So
normal person, like a non-competitive?
I think a normal person is probably around 4 to 5 pounds.
How do you measure that? I'm curious.
Well, I mean, I've been able to tell over the years based on the like when I did like practice stuff. I used to practice with like this is gonna sound super gross to the average person, but like I used to do like sugar-free Jello. I'd make like a giant bowl of sugar-free Jello, or a lot of competitive eaters like they'll do water training, so they'll drink a gallon of water. A gallon of water is roughly 8 pounds, so you can kind of get a better gauge of where you're at with your stomach being able to handle more. It's usually better to do it with like, I mean, honestly, it's definitely not the healthiest thing either, especially doing it with water because you can actually, die from, water intoxication. But yeah, so I like to do it with food just because like, it's just the better way to do it. So, but yeah, that's generally how you're able to kind of gauge your stomach capacity is through all of that.
Okay. So you were saying that you're not eating before the challenge, you're getting ready, and then how? What's the process?
So, so usually I don't eat before the challenge, and I go into it now. I'm now it's definitely like I'm thinking about how I used to do it, where it's just like I kind of set up my camera and I just hit record. And I'm like, cool, I'll think about everything on the spot and just eat food, and that's it. But now I don't script out my videos at all, but I definitely have like a few items that I'm like really excited to try. Like if I do there's like every single week there's like new cereal out here in America. There's new candy bars, new chips, and all this different type of stuff. And I'm like, oh, I'm super excited to try that new birthday Kit Kat. That's probably gonna be super good. So I already know in my mind that like my audience wants to see me try that. So I'm gonna really highlight that type of thing. I just have like big things in my mind that stick out to me, and I just kind of focus on those big things. If I'm really full, it gets incredibly hard to talk about those things. Like people don't really understand how difficult it is to like, because you're interacting with an audience of 100, thousand, sometimes hundreds of thousands. Sometimes like if the video gets a lot of hits, it's millions of people. So you really want to try to be as charismatic as possible. You don't want to just sit there and just be like, oh, this is really good. Okay. Like it's just not like, it's not watchable.
Right.
So but when you get to the point where you're literally just stuffed to the brim, it becomes incredibly difficult to do all of those things. And so yeah, I push through it most of the times. But if the challenge gets to be over 13,000, 14,000, 15,000 plus calories, it's almost impossible to like think, just because you have so much salt and sugar inside of you that it's just like, I kind of just do the best I can to get through it. So yeah, if when I finish each challenge, I do all my challenges at night, obviously, just because that's the meal I'm having for the day.
Right.
And so when you're taking in amount of that amount of calories and that amount of sodium, sugar, whatever it is, my body just goes into pretty much just like, okay, I don't want to call it shutdown mode, but I'm going to sleep right after that. Like it's just, I'm down, I'm sleeping on my back. I'm done for the night usually. And I usually, after I'm done cleaning up and everything, it's usually already about 10 o'clock. And so that's pretty much it. And then the next day is like kind of like a detox day where I just I don't go on a super long bike ride. I don't go on like a huge crazy run or anything like that, just because I have so much food inside of my stomach. I usually do something more, like low impact. I go on really long walks or something like that just to get the blood flow going, just to get digestion started. Because like everyone's always like, what's the next morning look like, Erik? And it's like, nah, it's not like what you think it is. It doesn't all just like flow. It's gross, but it doesn't just all flow out of me. Like it takes a long time for your body to be able to digest that amount of food. Like that, you were talking about like 14, to 15 pounds worth of food. That's not going to just all, come right out the next day. It's going to take days for that to actually happen. So, but yeah, the next day is usually pretty brutal. I'm not going to lie. It really just depends on, once again, like the macronutrient breakdown of the challenge. And I find that higher sugar challenges for me are actually easier to recover from than challenges with a ton of fat and sodium in them. Just because fat is it's the most calorie dense macronutrient, and it takes way more energy for the body to break down fat. And so it takes a longer time for fat to move through your body. And so that tends to slow the digestion process. Like when it comes down to carbs and sugar and all that, I still feel pretty bad the day after, but it's usually a much quicker recovery process for me.
And then, so that's like Tuesday, right? If you're feeling, and then by Wednesday, you're just back to doing like a lot of cardio and powerlifting, or
yeah. So by Wednesday, I'm usually back to normal again. I can wake up and I'm actually like, okay, I feel alive today. Cool. It's I'm back on planet Earth. And then I usually go for a bike ride. Bike riding for me is definitely something I try to do as much as possible, just because it's a much more sustainable cardiovascular activity for me. And I genuinely love cycling. So, so yeah, I'm doing that. And then I'm powerlifting as well. I usually lift about 3 or 4 times a week. A little bit less now because I'm training for my Ironman, and I get more benefits to doing bike rides and runs and everything. But yeah, I usually am back to editing on Wednesday. Like on Tuesday, like I don't even want to look at that footage because I'm just I'm just like I don't want to think about it anymore.
Yeah, I could imagine. So before we go, I gotta know, do the people at your local grocery store, supermarket, and the restaurants, do they know you? Do they know what's going on when you come in and buy this stuff? Like, what is their reaction?
Yes. I mean, now it's I would say people definitely know when I pull up to my local Taco Bell, my Chick-fil-A, McDonald's.
It's like all hands on deck.
Yeah, it was pretty, like I live pretty close to my local grocery store, so I definitely, I'd say like 4 or 5 of the employees, like I'll be walking down an aisle and I'll run into them and they'll be like, dude, what's the next challenge, man? What do you do? And even if it's me just eating something that's like a box of cereal in my my day-to-day life, they're like, are you doing a cereal challenge next? It's like, nah, man, I'm just getting some cereal. Like I really wanted some Lucky Charms today.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they know what's going on. It's cool. I love it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And I hope just everyone listening has been able to kind of really understand that it's okay to eat. You don't have to count every calorie, and just be active, be healthy. And Erik, thank you so much again. And that's it for today.
This is the Thought Leaders Podcast.